Meet. Welcome back. Now, first of all, I just want to say to you guys that this is not a guide video, so don't expect that normal quality. It's more like a podcast. What's on the screen isn't going to matter much. It's more of a talk. But today, it's like 1 or 2 days till the end of the showdown season, and I've kind of been thinking about my account. Like, I know I can't get to the top 100 this season. I'm ranked 349 in champion, so I guess I'm technically top 500. But this is about as high as I can go. My peak MMR, I think, was like 2650-ish, and I dropped back down. And I've been thinking about, how I can do better next season. So, again, this is more like a talk, but I broke it down into 5 topics. Number 1, being truthful with yourself. Number 2, recognizing your strengths. Number 3, recognizing your weaknesses. Number 4, taking lessons from every loss. And number 5, being realistic about what you can accomplish. So let's get started, boys. Alright, so topic number 1 is a quick one, is just being truthful with yourself. I'm actually kind of sad that I have to even mention this as a topic, but be honest about your own abilities and what you think you can achieve. Like, I think top 500 is pretty fair about where I belong right now. And I know that there's a lot of work I need to do to really cement myself as a top 100 player, assuming I ever even get there. But one thing that you shouldn't do, because I know a lot of people like this, I've been playing a lot of games competitively in the past. I was a rank 1 WoW player. I was interviewed by WoW Insider, I guess it's Engadget now. And a lot of people who are kind of close to the top but aren't quite there, they're just full of excuses, right? Like, even in Epic 7, people will be like, oh, I'd be the best player in the world if I bought packs, or, I'd be the best player in the world if I had the same ML5s or whatever. They always have so many excuses, and it's all BS. Like, the top players that I know, they're not like that at all. Like, they're always thinking, they're always trying to figure out what they did wrong, what they could have done better, and that's how they got better. When you assume that you're the best and the only reason that you're behind is because of, other people spent more money or whatever it is, I'm not saying that's not an advantage, it definitely is, but if that's all you're thinking about, then you'll never get better, because you're always going to convince yourself that that's the only reason that they're better than you, and they might be out drafting you, they may be smarter than you, whatever it is, but you'll never recognize that if you just hold on to those excuses. That's all I wanted to say on that topic, and the only reason I mention it is because that's what I'm going to try to do in the next few topics, analyze my own mistakes and discuss it with you. So let's move on to those now. Alright, so topic number 2, recognizing your strengths. This is where I'm going to build myself up and make me feel better about myself. So, you should always think about what you actually did well, just so you can put that as a lower priority on what you have to work on in the future. I mean, obviously, everything can always be improved. In this game, mostly that just means grinding gear. But for me, what I felt that I did pretty well in, even against legend players, usually I lose, but at least they were pretty close, are standard bruiser matchups. And by that I mean things like single knight, single soul weaver, and dual DPS. And, a lot of this makes sense because a lot of this comes in the frame of what heroes I have reforged. So with my core of DN, Alencia, like, these heroes have pretty decent stats even at the high tier. Things like Kayron, those kind of comps I found that I had pretty decent success with. Things using like SSB, her gear is reasonably good, not great. And S10A has been a staple for me in RTA. So I'd say in those kind of matchups, single Soul Weaver, single Knight, and double DPS, and the other person kind of goes the same build makeup as me, I can typically outdraft or match their draft and do pretty decent in that area, and that's how I got to the rating that I'm at. The other thing I'm pretty successful against is straight cleaves. When people try to Athletica or Oxlots cleaves me, even legend players, I usually beat them, because I have a lot of options. I'll discuss this more later, but a lot of RTA is options. And when it comes to cleaves, I'll have Kayron built. SSB is pretty good against things like Athletica cleaves. I have Ruel now. I wanted Ruel desperately because Ruel can neuter cleaves a lot of the time. And FCC does very, very well against Athletica cleaves. If you don't have FCC, it gets a lot harder. With FCC almost becomes like a mandatory ban for them. And it's if you pair with K-Ron, it's like a double mandatory ban because FCC will protect the immunities on your team from being stripped, which is very dangerous for a cleave team. So those are my strengths, and it makes sense because those are my heroes that have reforged pieces. If you follow my channel, you know I freaking hate hunts. So, compared to a legend player which by now has like 100 plus reforged pieces, this is all the reforged gear I have. So 27 pieces of reforged gear in total. That's it. So against top 100 players, that's absolutely mean. That's what they had in like the first 2 days. But again, it'll get better over time. So let's move on to the more interesting topic. So topic number 3, recognizing your weaknesses. This is where you kind of have to have a thick skin and just understand where you sucked and what you could have done better. So I'm going to talk about each of these individually, but these are the 3 things I thought I sucked against this season. Number 1, Double Knight Soul Weaver comps. Number 2, Lockdown debuff comps. And number 3, Pseudo Cleaves. So let's talk about how each of these teams beat me and why they were so hard for me and what I have to do to improve upon that. So number 1, Double Knight Soul Weaver comps. I noticed that a lot of Legend players love this. And by that I mean something like Ruel plus like F. Clury and, like Lilius or Crow or FCC. And then like one random DPS, or sometimes even like triple Knight double Soul Weaver if they have something like an ML Tywin. And this comp is very annoying for me. And the main reason is because I have very few built Knights, and if they steal them from me, my damage mitigation game is demolished. So FCC is by far my best Knight. You'll notice even her, she only has 1 reforged piece. But her stats are pretty reasonable. I'm pretty happy with her stats overall. Obviously I could reforge and make her much better. And my second best Knight is Crow. Now, his stats are pretty garbage. He's certainly usable, but, he has pretty low life for someone that's so slow. Like, a lot of people who have, like, less than 25k life will have a lot of defense, like 200 plus speed. Mine's, like, slow and still kind of squishy. And the other problem is my Crow has my plus 24 Aureus, and my FCC has my plus 30 Adamant. I do not have any other Knight that has to, like, look at my Lilius has a plus 1 Aureus, my Araz has a plus 3 Adamant. My Lilius stats make no sense. I'm just using her to mule random pieces of gear. These stats are not usable in RTA. So what's my point here? If they steal FCC, I'm already kind of neutered. If they also take Crow, I'm forced to go no Knight, because honestly, bringing either of these things to RTA the way they're built is suicide. I'm not going to bring a plus 3 Adamant or a plus 1 Aureus with these kind of nonsensical stats into RTA. So anytime a top player takes these heroes against me, I'm automatically neutered. So now to explain why it's a problem for me, this answer is simple. Number 1, I need to fix Lilius. Lilius is very strong. I need to either decide on like a low HP damage build or a high speed utility build. I just don't have the gear for it, honestly, but I'm just going to continue doing Wyvern. I need to fix Lilius, maybe invest a few more molas in her. Another hero that I desperately need to build, if you look at my I can't use her in RTA because I built her recently. Look at this, I'm not even done for skill tree. I'm waiting for the next rune event, but she is so strong in RTA, especially in lockdown comps. I need to build her as well. Her stats are pretty junk-like. She needs effectiveness. She has none. Honestly, her stats aren't too terrible, but not really well built for RTA. But this is also something I need to work on. Number 2, lockdown comps. What's a lockdown comp? When someone has a team against me that includes something like Champ Z plus something like Dizzy, and also my Bane, one of the heroes I hate running into the most, Fire Tenebria, if I can ever find her. There she is, Fire Tenebria. I do not have an answer against these kind of teams. When they go it, I usually just end up yielding in the first 5 seconds because I don't have good cleansers built. And also what they'll do is usually they'll do something like go Lilius first to steal it from you and mask what they're trying to do, because Lilius is kind of pretty good in any comp. and then they'll transition to that kind of comp. And even if they didn't, again, look at my Lily system. I cannot bring this to RTA. So when they go to those kind of comps, I literally have no answer. So what is my answer? Again, two birds with one stone. I have to fix my goddamn Lilius. And then I keep saying I'm going to fix these here. I cannot get the damn gear. I can't get Soul Weaver gear for some reason. But I need to build either Ray or DJ Basar with very high effect resist, like at least 200 plus, to kind of neuter them. Because if I can get both a decent Lilius and a Ray or a DJ Basar on the board, that'll shut down a lot of my problems that I have with those comps. But as it is, hopefully some of you guys running these comps, I'm kind of laying it all out there. So if you actually watch my video, you'll know exactly how to beat me. That's fine. I don't care. Feel free to beat me, guys. Like, I don't get mad about it. I don't really care when I lose. But if you go some kind of triple D buffer comp, you're going to beat me because I literally have nothing built. I don't even have Fire Arcades built. Fire Arcades is pretty decent against those kind of comps as well. As of right now, I have no answer to anyone who goes both Dizzy and Tenebria. Basically, my answer to that is I yield. Sorry. And number 3, honestly, the thing I'm least concerned about is pseudo-cleaves. If I start running into these when I start getting near the top, it's kind of weird. But there are these people who are very creative, and they don't go true cleave. By true cleave, I mean, like, Athletica or Oxlots into boosting someone really squishy and really hard. They don't do that, because those are really easy to ban out in a way that totally screws them. What they'll do is they'll have, like, multiple heroes built that are speed-tuned very weird. Because in a straight bruiser versus bruiser, like, the fastest people usually be like the Soul Weavers or like a Knight, like a Lilius, and they'll usually be around 200. Liliuses are kind of faster, like Adventurer Rods, they could be like 220 to 240, but in general, the sweet spot is around 210, 200 to 210. So they'll build these offensive characters like Vivian, Yafine. I used to run into a lot of Melissa, where they're tuned to be just faster than that. They'll be like 210 or 220. I even run into Pavel around that speed every once in a while. So they're still really strong. Like, remember, reforging made speed a lot easier to get, though. So they'll be around 220 speed, but be really strong. And they're tuned to go just right before your bruiser team without any CR pushes. And I found that I don't really have an answer to that. My best answer to that so far has been going, things like Kayron or something, or trying to counter speed cleave if I catch on to it soon enough. But those comps are dangerous because they could also transition to a bruiser comp pretty easily. But if you go straight bruiser against like 5 DPS that are all at 210 and still hit really hard, Water Key is another example, and like Cigarette, they will all go first and wipe out like 2 of your team, and it automatically becomes a 4v2. I noticed that I struggle with that as well. But honestly, that's the one I'm least concerned with. I think that'll handle itself if I get stronger gear where I can kind of tank out those kind of heroes. Or I can invest in more speed heroes like Acid or something to kind of try and shut those down. My Acid's pretty decent. If I also built Acoli or something that can't ban both, it'd be pretty helpful against comps like that. That's on my bottom of my priority list. My main priorities are fixing my Knight situation, which is a joke. I need to get like more, at least like plus 24 Aureuses or Adamants, so I have options, and so I don't get completely hosed when they steal my FCC or Crow. I need to fix my Ruel. My Ruel is a joke. Like, look at her gear. It's all free 75 gear because I just don't have anything to put on her. A lot of work to do for the Squirrel. A lot of work to do. I'm surprised I got as high as I did given my abysmal gear situation. But I hate hunts. I just freaking hate it. But I'm doing it because I love PvP. So anyways, I think I was pretty transparent about what I suck at here. Let's move on to the next topic. So topic number 4. Again, it's going to be a pretty quick one, but it's more like a moral thing. Just make sure you take lessons from every loss. Some people are such sore losers that when they lose, they're just in a rage and they just come up with every excuse in the book. Anytime I lose, I try to think about it. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you're going to lose through no fault of your own. Like, let's say you open with a Basar, and the entire enemy team that has 0 effect resist, all of them resist the unbuffable and a pushback. That's going to happen. When you play hundreds of matches, that's going to happen. You're going to be pissed off. But statistically, it shouldn't happen very often. But remember, RNG is a big part of this game. You're going to lose sometimes. It's going to be total BS. If you watch my videos, you know it's happened to me all the time. On the other side, I know I've done it to people a bunch of the time as well. So bad RNG goes both ways. But outside of those, always think about what made you lose. It could be so many things. Did you draft properly? Did you get out-drafted? Did you ban the right hero in the ban phase? Like sometimes, you don't notice it right away, but 5 minutes into the match you realize this one hero that's screwing you, it really needed to be banned, and it would have been much easier if you let that other hero through. Always think about every loss, and be realistic. Sometimes it will be a gear issue. Sometimes when I'm in RTA, it's apparent that I'm losing because of a gear issue or a MOLA issue. But other times when it's not even close, it's very clear that gear wasn't the reason that I lost. There was something else going on. I just got out-drafted and I got outplayed. Always think about those things, and I might do a more in-depth video on that in the future. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to get up to speed on that. But basically, the gist of this topic is taking lessons from every loss. Let's move on. Alright, so topic number 5, final topic, is be realistic about what you can accomplish. Now, some people will say like, oh, I'm a top 100, they're going to be a top 100 player, but they're like a 3-month F2P player. Bro, it's not going to happen. Just be realistic. If you get to champion, you're doing pretty good for yourself, man. Like, you have to keep in mind who these top 100 players are. Now, I'm not saying an F2P player can't be in the top 100. I'm sure that a handful of these people may be, but if they are F2P, I guarantee you that they're either a day 1 player or very close to a day 1 player. Like a 6-month-old F2P player in top 100, I highly doubt it. If one of you guys are out there, feel free to correct me, but I highly, highly doubt it. Because I know for a fact, like, I remember I was on YouTube the other day and it was some Epic 7 YouTuber, and it was like, overview of my $20,000 whale account. I was like, $20,000? Like, holy shit. Like, that's what you're up against when you're going into the top 100, guys. These guys have been buying MOLA packs. They've been buying Mystic packs for the past year. You have to be realistic. If you're an F2P player and you're up against that, as much as I consider Epic 7 to be a very F2P friendly game overall, $20,000 does get you an advantage. And, the main advantage in RTA is options. Now, if you were paying attention in number 3, you'll recognize that a lot of my weaknesses were because of options. Against debuff teams, I didn't have any options built. Against double knight teams that steal my knights, I didn't have any options built. Once you verse top 100 players, what you realize is when they draft, they have an answer to everything you do. For example, let's say I go up against a top 100 player and I pick Seaside Bologna. 90% of the time, they're immediately going to pick a Rwanda to me, and it's geared, and a lot of times they have like 10 molas in it. I'm like, what the hell? Like, Rwanda sucks against everything except SSP. Like, why did they build this? But they did. They did because they want to have an answer to everything. They'll have, when you bring like a Dizzy against them, suddenly you run into a Built Ray or a DJ Bassar. At the lower tiers, that doesn't happen. At the lower tiers, you can come up with some kind of simple game plan, and it works 90% of the time because the heroes that would counter it, not everyone has those people built. But you'll even run into like weird things, like what's that? Like Tempest Surin. Like, a lot of these legend players just have a lot of options, and a lot of those options are enabled by packs. Gear not so much, but like molas, you need to have molas to make these heroes viable, and they've been buying them out all the time, so they have the molas to build so many different heroes. Like, these legend players, a lot of times, they will outdraft you all of the time. Now, I know there's probably a handful of other legend players in this list that are running the exact same team over and over and having some success because they're very creative, maybe some kind of really bizarre cleave that confuses people. But in general, if you're going like Bruiser versus Bruiser, which is the majority of the time at these ratings, a lot of it is options, like, trying to predict what the other player wants, stealing their heroes, and you cannot do that if you don't have those heroes built. So, the point of this is just be honest about what you're up against. Don't be upset if you're not in the top 100 or even in champion or whatever. Like, you have to keep in mind that a lot of these players have been playing way longer than you. Many of them have been spending a lot more money than you. Like, there are people in gachas who have spent, like Summoner's War, I think there are people who spent like over 100 grand on that video game, from what I've heard. Just be mindful of what you're up against. If you can get into like even like the top 2,000, you're doing pretty damn good for yourself, because I guarantee there's more than 2,000 people in the world paying big money to this game. Otherwise, they'd be out of business by now. So anyways, that was my video podcast, I guess. I know what I showed for the most part was completely useless, but I hope, my transparency kind of helped you out. Me analyzing my own strengths and weaknesses in RTA, figuring out what I need to do better next season, and maybe you can apply some of those same lessons to yourself and your own performance. In the future, I will do a more, in-depth, concise RTA guide for complete beginners. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see anything like that. And thanks for watching this. Till next time, guys, peace out.